Next slide. So this is the difference between earlier business thinking and now design thinking. So in case of business thinking, you know that we have a problem, we have a solutions. That is prejudice, that is predefined. We know that such problem has such solutions. But in case of defined design thinking, the thought, the perception has changed because now the human-centric approach has come. So the problem has, you have to understand the context in totality so that we can give two, three, or n number of solutions depending on the requirement of the customers on the basis of their experience and on the basis of their satisfaction. The next slide. So a design thinking by considering it in the next large context, like a chair in a room in a house in an environment in a city plan. So as I said, this has taken to micro level so that in totality it becomes a macro level. So it is basically a design of a design thinking is a process of thinking, designing a thinking so that it can consider in the next larger context, like a small context to bigger, to bigger, to bigger, like a chair in the room finally in that particular location in the environment in a city plan. So this is design thinking. You can say it involves business, which is validity. It involves your people for desirability. It involves technology for feasibility. And finally, all these three, your viability, your desirability, and your technology basically needs to combine together to have a solutions in the context of the customer's experience in the human-centric way. So this is very uniform and very known and standard. You can say infographics related to design thinking. That it has, like as I said, 5 steps like empathy, insights. That means like then you can have these ideations. Then you have these hits. So basically, it started with the discovery, like empathy with the insight. So it is basically shown in a loops because there is no like a b c d or in series or linear. It is not a linear progression. Basically it is not like I will start with empathy, then I will go to this insight, then I will do hmw, then I will go for these ideations. So no, not like that. It can be started from any at any point of time, like sprint design. But the only thing is that what you have to touch upon all these 5 pillars of design thinking to understand and how to innovate. So it is a iterative and non-linear process, as I told you. So the processes are basically like empathy, define, ideate, prototype, test. So loops, if you can see, so it is not like that. I will start with empathize and I'll end at test. So it can be anywhere. We can start at any moment of time at any particular processes, but all 5 need to be touched upon unless and until we get the solution we are intended to. So it is a iterative, means you can have to pass through some processes a number of times. So it is not said that once empathize done, then you have to wait for completion of the empathize to move to define, or you have to complete define, then you can move to ideate. No, you can start with empathize, parallelly you can start with define also. And in the meantime, if you say that you can start with ideation also, but the number of steps involving any of the defined processes can be n number of times. Like you can start empathy twice or thrice, parallelly going before going to define, or define can start early than before going to ideation, or ideation can start before you go to test. So these things are basically it made in such a way that you can invest your time more fruitfully, and you can have a better understanding of the current situation or environment into which due to which this problem statement has cropped up. So if you simplify the design process, then first and foremost, you need to understand why are we doing this. That if this is not clear, then then what is the reason for, what is the actually the purpose of doing this? So we should know why we are doing this and what we are going to do and what we are doing, why we are doing. Then once you know this, then what are we doing, how are we doing, and how it is going. So this is a very simplified process to understand design thinking. So all these questions actually, that's why the Einstein said, I will spend 55 minutes of the 60 minutes in thinking. So you need to have a very structured thinking. So and finally, the 5 minutes is enough to give you the solutions. Next slide. So this is the process, as I defined earlier also, if you have a general problem, you have to discover it, you have to define it so that you can have a specific problem or opportunity, because you have a general problem. Out of this general problem, you have to segment, you have to find out which is the specific problem. Like problem statements we make, we have to find out the problem, from that you're getting this specific problem, again define it so that you can deliver a solution to it. So it is very simple, seems very simple, but still it requires a lot of thinking, lots of iterations, and lot of process enabled systems, which we can have, which we cannot do individually purposefully for a specific problem. If it's related to the corporate, related to the education institution, the team is required, because so that it can cut short the time to reach the required solution for a specific problem or opportunity. Next slide. So this is the mindset we need to have in the team, that the team should be curious enough, like a child mind of enthusiastic, who is enthusiastic to know, or to talk about the ideas and questions, and then enough to build a idea rather than think if it all done. Then the mindset, the team should have the empathy, deeply understanding the peoples you are trying to design for, because why you are doing this, the first thing is that you are doing for some people. So that idea, that thought, that understanding should not fade away. Then you should have a system thinking. Now you should look at the interconnectivity of the all the various factors, which is the due to the reason this problem statement or pain point has cropped up, or it has become a specific problem. So you should know this interconnectiveness of the various factors which affects the things, and you have to understand the bigger picture. Then iterations, obviously iterations basically is being made so that it works in short cycles, and you can have a very quickly and take a very step forward, very small steps you can move forward for having an early feedback before the whole things come into picture as a final solution. Next slide. So these are the skills which needs to require for any individuals, for any team members of any corporates or any sectors of the industry or services, that they need to have these visualization test skills. They need to have the storytelling skills, because storytelling is now getting a lot of impetus in our ecosystem for the startups, industries, and also in the case of like researches activities. This storytelling is now gaining impetus. Then brainstorming, it is not a new thing, but this is always there in our management system. But still, this is the skill which is required for design thinking. Then observation, you should need to have very good observation skill. You should keep your ears and eyes open. Then you have the visual thinking activities. You could be in a position to have this visual thinking, which is part of the cognitive thinking, and which you know that machines are taking care of this nowadays through this ML and DL, deep learning, machine learning. And the five whys, this is not a new thing, it is very old thing in all the management concept. Five whys, so to find the root cause analysis using the problem statements in the industry. We all know, whosoever working in the industries, the five whys. Also it is required for the research activity during like you can say the creating the problem statements after literature reviews. Next slide. So these are the key concepts which is mostly being used in design thinking. So those are like front stage. Front stage means part of your service that the customers and clients can see and experience the front stage. Then we have some concepts called backstage. The backstage basically the part of the service that happens behind the scenes. Like in movies, the singer is basically the backstage. Then we have the blueprints, like breakdown of both the end-to-end customer experience as well as the surface to core backstage of your business process, the entire business blueprint. Then then concept called journey is there, how customer is going to experience your product or services after you have evolved through your ecosystem of innovations using design thinking. So that journey mapping has to be there. This is a concept. Otherwise, how could you know that your things have been taken well by the customers, or still you have left out with some problem statements or pain points? That touch points, there is a single point of interactions which is happening with the customer and the service. How are we going to have this touch points, whether through the AI enabled chatbots or an AI enabled some other devices which we're going to use in the internet or websites or phones or mobiles or app. Then the channels, that is all the social media channels, the specific media in which the interactions can take place. So whatever the social media interaction is happening, so it is happening as a part of the concept under design thinking to have a two-way communication between the customers, because it is human centric, with the organization of people who are there to lessen their pain points.